Whenever I make a deck for this channel, I usually just construct it based off of a list I'd build in real life with the cards I already own. Obviously, this is great for me, but not always insanely accessible for the majority of people playing Magic. When I started playing, I didn't have nearly the developed collection I do now, and today I'd like to present a deck that harkens back to those simpler times, with a powerful deck that can grind, accrue value, and finish the table off with a combo that you can build for less than $100. One of my favorite commanders to build around ever is Karador, Ghost Chieftain. Karador is an 8-mana 3/4 for 5 white, black, and green, and they cost 1 less for each creature card in our graveyard. And, most importantly, we get to cast a creature spell each turn from our graveyard. Back when I first started playing, Karador was a $12 card on its own, but now that it's been reprinted in Commander Legends with the foil-etched version, you can find a copy for around $5. This commander is insanely powerful, and for this price point, I think it's the perfect general for our strategy and goal. This is Karador, a graveyard combo deck. Let's talk about the mana engine. Because we can't afford some of the stronger ramp staples, we're going to be playing with the bread and butter, mana dorks. These little guys are really good at letting us skip up the curve to hit the spells that matter, and are also really good if we incidentally mill them with our other cards. Avacyn's Pilgrim, Llanowar Elves, the usual suspects. They're cheap in mana and in cost, so I'm super excited to include them. I've also included copies of Kodama's Reach and Cultivate since they're so ubiquitously reprinted and hyper-efficient. Sakura Tribe Elder is a house in this deck, letting us continuously ramp in growth every turn if we choose to play with Karador, letting us stack up piles of mana to use at a later date. Loading up the graveyard is a lot harder when we don't have stuff like Entomb, but we can make it work with the help of some cheap role players. Unmarked Grave is a powerhouse in this deck, and at $3 it's incredibly affordable. With this card, we can dump things like Golgari Grave Troll into the bin and start dredging, or we can go and find some useful combo piece for Karador once the engine's already rolling. Sometimes we can use it to get a silver bullet to help us in a tough situation. Problematic enchantment? Pitch that Foundation Breaker. Need someone's commander gone ASAP? Toss that Shriekmaw right in the garbage. We also have Violent Tumor and Gravebreaker Lamia that do similar things, and attached to a creature. Lamia has the added benefit of discounting whatever we get, which lets us discount our creatures we cast every turn, or something like the flashback half of Unburial Rites. Grizzly Salvage and Satyr Wayfinder are great ways of just putting a bunch of junk in our graveyard at once, with Satyr Wayfinder being an excellent recurable engine with our commander. If we're starting to run low on resources, or have to play around some graveyard hate, we can refill at a moment's notice by replaying it once or twice. Silverglade Pathfinder, a cute little card from Mercadian Mass, turns any creature in our hand into a rampant growth. It's unassuming, but being able to loop Grave Troll or Stinkweed Imp as recurring land acceleration is scary when they're also loading up our graveyard as we do it. I haven't got to play with it too much, but Old Stick Fingers is a big mana sink that lets us dump as many guys in our graveyard as we can pay mana. Best part is, we don't necessarily mill over cards we'd rather have in our hand, like removal spells or our Soul Ring. We just get the good cards in the garbage. I'm inclined to include Viscera Seer and Carrion Feeder in the graveyard section, even though they're on board, just because they let us kill our own guys to replay from the graveyard. Sometimes you just gotta do it the hard way and manually slaughter your own creatures so that they can go to the big ranch upstate, where there's room to run around and play all day. So we've gotten ahead on mana, we've got a loaded up graveyard. Now what? One thing we can do is start abusing the power of the single most important card in our deck, Karmic Guide. Karmic Guide reanimates anything we want out of our graveyard, regardless of mana cost, and then nobly dies on our following turn to let us recast from our graveyard. Play Karmic Guide, reanimate Ashen Rider, blow up something shiny and powerful. Sacrifice Rider to Carrion Feeder, blow up something shiny and powerful, sacrifice Karmic Guide. Rinse, repeat. This takes place over the course of multiple turns, but we have ways to do it faster. Enter Prowling Geistcatcher. If we sacrifice a creature with this bad boy in play, we're going to tuck it underneath the Prowling Geistcatcher until it also leaves the battlefield. This is insane at developing crazy loops for us, and it's less than $1. I highly recommend picking this card up if you get the chance. Play Karmic Guide, reanimate Ashen Rider, sacrifice Ashen Rider, and it gets tucked under our Geistcatcher. Sacrifice Karmic Guide and tuck it alongside the Rider, and then sacrifice the Geistcatcher. You get your Ashen Rider and your Karmic Guide back, and then the Karmic Guide reanimates the Geistcatcher. Hooray! Your opponents no longer have permanents! Mass Destruction not really your goal? That's okay. Replace Ashen Rider with Grey Merchant of Asphodel, and you're killing everyone with damage. The, fair way. Another best buddy of Karmic Guide is Revelark. Revelark grabs 2 power 2 or less creatures when it dies, and Karmic Guide conveniently fits that description. So we play Karmic Guide and reanimate Revelark. We sacrifice Karmic Guide and then sacrifice Revelark, which triggers and gets back Karmic Guide and Grey Merchant of Asphodel. Karmic Guide gets back a Revelark, and we're back where we started, plus a Grey Merchant, and all of our opponents at 2 less life. Karmic Guide exiled at some point? We can still combo with Revelark and Safi Eriksdottir. If you have both in play, you sacrifice the Safi and target the Revelark with this ability. Then, sacrifice the Revelark to one of our free outlets. Revelark will trigger and get back Grey Merchant, or some other power 2 or less homie, and Safi. Safi's ability triggers, and we get back our Revelark. We can loop this indefinitely to just kill the table. In terms of the mana base, we're working with what we can. Ideally, I would not like to play as many lands that enter the battlefield tapped, but we want to make sure we're hitting as many different possible color combinations in the later turns as we can. Gain lands and scry lands are our best bets, because they're cheap, and they have a noticeable enough upside to be worth including over just straight-up guild gates. This deck list is the conclusion I came to. All in all, there's a lot to enjoy about this deck. It can grind with the big swingy tables, it's fun to pilot, and the intricacies of the combos are dense enough that it'll keep you and your opponents on your toes. It's also a very popular archetype in the grand scheme of Magic, which means that as more and more sets are released and you have more time to add, you can flesh out the deck in really powerful and interesting ways. The first time you upgrade a Blossoming Sands into a Temple Garden, or a Vile Entomber into a much less vile copy of Entomb, you'll get to see your deck level up in an incredibly rewarding way. Building on a budget is fun because it lets us flex our brain muscles to see what we can make work with what we have. I'm really excited to try it out, and would love if you could do the same. If you do, make sure you let me know how it goes in the comments, or on my Twitter, @CascadeCascades. If you like the video, make sure to let me know by hitting the like button and subscribing. And leave a comment below on what sort of deck you'd want to see me do a breakdown for next time. Thanks for watching.